Moving on up. Welcome to the Virginia Democratic Small Business Caucus Show. We're winners, and everybody knows we gotta keep on pushing. Moving on up. Welcome back, folks. Welcome back, and we're so glad to have you here back at the Virginia Democratic Small Business Caucus Show. Live, and we are live coming at you out of Northern Virginia, and we're just happy to see everybody back with you. And back on our day that we're usually here on Wednesdays, but we've been doing a lot of special extra shows in celebration of African American History Month all this month. And folks, I just want to say thank you for being here. Thank you, all you folks who are small business owners across the country, small business owners here in Virginia, all you folks who are aspiring to be small business folks, and most of all you supporters of small business here in Virginia and across the country. Thank you. We're happy to see you here. And folks, we're going to start off again on Woke Wednesday. Yes, it's Woke Wednesday, but you got to be woke every day because there's a whole lot going on, and we need to make sure we're keeping you informed and talking about it from a small business perspective as we go throughout the year. Lovely to see you back. Fantastic to see you back. And my special hostess with the mostest, as I call her, my co-host, who is here sometimes, maybe in the day. Once again, if she's not, I always mention her. It's our interim chair for the Louisiana Democratic Small Business Caucus, and her name is Erin Porcher. So we'll get her on when she comes in. If not, we're just going to talk to you. We've got a great host who, a great guest. A great guest that's coming up. You can tell I don't work with a script. I'm just talking to you, and that's how we want it to be: informal, informational, and engaging. And folks, we're just happy to see whenever you get an opportunity to come online here at 7 o'clock on Wednesdays, or whenever you want to go back on social media and take a look at the guests and the conversation that we had here. Once again, we are streaming live on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter, and also on YouTube. So if you Google us and just put in VADSBC, we'll pop up. We'll pop up every time. So folks, thank you for being here. It's always a pleasure. And as I sit here and talk to you about the things that I think are important, that you ought to know, and things that we need to continue to hammer at and continue to stay involved with some very important issues that affect your life, and it affects your family's life and your business life. I always start off talking about COVID and just asking people, please do your due diligence, decide what you want to do. Get your vaccines if that's what you've decided. I've gotten mine, and I'm urging you to get your 2 shots and then get your booster, and and continue practicing social distancing and wearing your mask at the proper times, and we'll make it through. As it is, things are already getting better, but it's not done. So let's hope that we get to the point where we don't have to worry about this anymore. We can go back to what we regularly do in some cases. Excuse me, I try to scoot my chair up. But certain things have changed, and change is not always bad. Change can be for the better, and in this case, change is for the better, because in this case with COVID, things are getting better, but we're not out of the woods. So stay with it, folks. Stay with it. The next thing I want to really kind of talk to you a little bit about, as you and your family continue to be blessed and continue to be safe, is what's going on a little bit in Virginia. I always talk about Virginia. This is the Virginia Democratic Small Business Caucus show live. And one of the other things that I like to talk to you about is what's going on locally here in Virginia. And we've got a great guest who's going to be on later, who's really going to be able to add to that conversation. Virginia is continuing to do what it needs to do. After some very challenging election year in November. Once again, as I've told you yesterday and last week, it's not over, folks. It is a long game. And a long game means that you have to stay in there. You have to be intentional in your efforts. You have to have a strategy, and you have to stay vigilant. Because every year in Virginia, there are elections, but in your state, there's elections too on a regular course. So you always have an opportunity to change what's going on in your community simply by voting, getting involved in your civic, local, and state community and the politics and your businesses and your families. Well, all that locally is what really affects you more so than things at a federal level, but the federal level has its place as well. Okay, so and we talked about last in Virginia. Our guest we had on yesterday was one of the person who was running for the state senate in Virginia, and she's running in the 33rd. And we had a great guest on yesterday, Jennifer Carol Foy, who was a delegate and also had run for the governorship or the gubernatorial race here in Virginia in the primary. But she's out there again running in the state senate, and she added some really good things from a small business perspective and other things. I really appreciated having her on as a guest. And we've got a great, if you've already looked at the promo, you know we have another great political guest on the show today. We'll talk a little bit about her later, but also what's happening in Virginia is redistricting. And the redistricting in Virginia has been extremely interesting. And as a result, there's people who used to live in certain places, who lived in certain communities, are having either a new delegate or a new state senator. All that happens after the census is done every 10 years, and then folks get together on the political leadership, and they redraw maps, which reflect the changes that have happened in the last 10 years. And that's a good thing, as long as it's done honestly and done impartially and independently, most important. But we'll talk a little more about that a little bit later. But let me just talk a little bit about small business in Virginia. We are still a lot of Virginians, and I'll bring some more facts on this specifically. What has happened at a federal level, even with Democrats, the American Rescue Plan was passed. We haven't talked about it in a little while, but you had 4 or 5 very good components of that plan that a lot of folks all over the country have taken advantage of, small business owners, with the Paycheck Protection Program. You also had the Economic Injury Disaster Loan program that's out there. Basically, the Paycheck Protection Program really gave money to small business owners in order so that they could continue meeting their payroll, continue to keep people employed, and continue to make it through this COVID disaster as we have experienced. And that's a good thing. Also, I mentioned the Economic Injury Disaster Plan, disaster loans, which is a good thing. Those things out there have been extremely helpful to keep people in business. And people have taken advantage of those things, which they rightfully should have. It's important that we keep our small businesses viable through these very, very impactful times with COVID-19 and everything that's come from that. The additional things they have out there also was the Shuttered Venue Operations Grant, which basically is looking at places where there's live entertainment or theaters or places like that where obviously people have been affected there. Some of these venues have opened back up with the assistance of the tax money that they've given the government in order to keep those businesses viable and working, because they had some special things that you had to do with them, theaters and the like. The other thing is they have the SBA debt relief plan, and the SBA debt relief plan has been very helpful as well. And with the SBA debt relief plan, basically for people who had small business loans, they had some programs that, and that's what the SBA stands for, if you didn't know, the Small Business Administration, to help folks get over the hump with this. And the last thing, of course, everybody knows this because probably you all saw a lot of your local restaurants go out of business. And what the Biden administration and Democrats put out there was a restaurant revitalization fund. So these are all good things that, one, help restaurants stay in the business, and along with the other programs, because people in small businesses were eligible for some of these loans, one of these type of programs. I shouldn't call them all loans, but there was only one loan program in here too, actually, SBA and the economic injury disaster loan. But people were eligible for more than one of those programs, and more than one of those programs is what people got to experience with the American Rescue Plan. $1.2 trillion was put into that plan. Also, I haven't talked about this in a while, but Build Back Better. Build Back Better has been a fantastic plan that Democrats tried to put out there and get these things taken care of. And of course, people have heard there was the physical piece of it, or the infrastructure portion of that, where almost $3 trillion was passed that went into that plan. There will be benefits for small business, and small business will get an opportunity because that legislation actually made it through both houses in the Congress and made it to the president's desk for signature. The only plan that's still out there that has not happened yet is the human infrastructure piece, is what they call that. And that plan had a lot of different things that was targeted more at people and people programs as opposed to physical and infrastructure related programs. But we got to keep on pressing, keep on pushing. Those bills, among others, have not all made it through to the president's desk, but that is the intention, that they make it through to the president's desk for signature. And the Congress is going to come up for an election next year, and hopefully the Democrats can continue to hold the House at a federal level and continue to get more people's minds changed, so some of the bills that have not been passed will get passed. Just very important that we talk about that. The other thing I want to talk to folks about too, we got just a quick hour here to kind of go through things, is we're also celebrating African American History Month. And in our celebration of African American History Month, we really want to talk about the great things that are out there for historically that Africans have done business in, and also how they're affecting where we are going today. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And after we talk a little bit about African American History Month, we'll move in and we'll start to talk a little bit about my favorite subject, which is voting rights, as you well know. And after we talk on voting rights, we'll invite our guests. We have a extremely special guest here, and we're looking forward to introducing her and bringing her live into our stream. Okay, so let's start off first by talking about the VADSBC, or the Virginia Democratic Small Business Caucus celebration of African American History Month. And we're talking history here, right, folks? So let's talk about the contribution of Africans to the business world. We're going to go way back here. We're going to talk about Mansa Musa I. And Mansa Musa I was a ruler of the Mali Empire in West Africa from 1312 to 1337. Controlling the territories, rich in gold and copper, and monopolizing pretty much trade between the north interior of the continent. And also Mali, as a result, grew very wealthy. Mansa Musa was said to have spent so much gold in Cairo and in Egypt, well, people know as Kemet, that the value of the bullion of gold crashed by 20%. So this was an amazing empire that goes back to African history, which predates even the so much, because when we're talking 1312 to 1337, you're talking about things that happened even before the slave trade even began, and before Africa was even colonized, which leads to a lot of the history that's here in the United States, but gives you the history of what Africans were doing then, and we'll talk about now in business, right? So let's talk about the African American history in business. Mansa Musa he was Muslim like his royal predecessors. Mansa Musa brought back architects and scholars from his pilgrimage to Mecca, and he would build mosques and universities, such cities that you've probably heard of, like Timbuktu, internationally famous, Mansa Musa's 1324 stopover in Cairo, though it would later spread to fame even further and go on to Europe, were the tall tales of the king's fabulous wealth and gold that began to stir the interest in traders of people all over the world. And this is a graphic here which kind of shows you exactly how large that kingdom was and what they were, who they were doing business with, what their trade routes were. And this was back in the 1300s up to, I think, 1370, whatever it was in the other slide. 1312 to 1337. And if you can see up there in the far right corner, you see that. That's my technology going on, folks. It's a live show. You're going to hear stuff like that. You can see in the far left-hand side of Africa right there, that area alone can fit the size of the United States. Just gives you an idea of the vast kingdom and area of which he covered in the routes that went both north and south, or as they call it in Africa, it's called up south, not down south, but up south. But those are the things which really were the opportunities for business and things that happened, just some of the great history of that empire at that time. So we're talking Mansa Musa the first, fantastic businessman, fantastic ruler that actually shows the history of Africans and African Americans in history with that those charts that I showed you. Now I'm going to just go to something else, which I'm going to share a video with you, which kind of said we talked about the past, but what about businessmen now? What about business in the present? What about business that Africans throughout the diaspora and non-Africans out throughout the diaspora can do business with Africa to build business so we all can live in a better world? Let's share a quick little video which actually shows you what that is. And I'm going to go ahead and bring that video on now as we share the screen. And I'm going to bring the screen up, and then I am going to play the video for you. Hopefully this technology works, right? Here we go. Yeah, there it is.
What is Africa? Is it the wildlife, the beautiful coasts, thriving cities? It is more than that. It is the people. Our 55 countries have many things in common. Our cultures bind us together. They give us strength and identity. They make us proud. By sharing our knowledge and working together, we're building a new Africa that's driven by investments, by game-changing infrastructure projects, and using transformative technology to change the way we live, work, and conduct business. Using our largest natural resource, our vast arable land, we are making advances in agriculture, developing new industries, creating jobs, and improving livelihoods. Together, we are moving forward on economic integration. By consolidating Africa's significant internal market to foster trade within the continent and with the world, Africa is open for business. We are building the Africa we want. So, what is the continent of the future? The answer is Africa.
Wow, there you go. Business opportunities coming from everywhere. And look at that for small business, great opportunities for Virginia to do business in Africa, wanting folks to come there and do business and small business to have opportunities with the fastest growing population, almost 3 billion people. I forgot what the number was, the enormous amount of infrastructure building that's going on there, and also services that are there with the average young age of being about 15 years of age, the youngest growing, largest population in the world. So what we try to get people to understand from a business perspective, hey, there's opportunity there, and Virginia small business is definitely going to get our share and work with folks around in Virginia, and also bring those services and products back here to the United States as well, and in Virginia. So this is going to be an exciting time. I'm not a young guy anymore. I'm 62, but man, you millennials and and you 20 somethings, there are great opportunities here and around the country. And that's why we're trying to do so much here in the United States with the Biden Build Back Better program with the Biden-Harris administration to let folks know about the value of investing in people and investing in infrastructure and delivering opportunity and wealth for everyone. Believe me, it's not a zero-sum game. As others gain, we all gain. So the thing is to work together and to build better Virginia, a better United States, and a better world. So that's what we're looking forward to. So that was a very interesting video. I really kind of liked that when I saw it. Want to have the opportunity to share it. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about as we move further along the line, it's 7:21. Try to stay within my hour, but folks, we have to talk about my favorite program. And you know what that is. That's right. It's blinking at you. Voting rights. We need to stay focused on voting rights because remember, voting rights are fundamental and foundational to what we do here. And if we don't keep our focus on voting rights, then we're basically going to be missing out. And there's a number of different things that we want to talk about with voting rights, right? So let's talk about what we have been able to get done. And what we have been able to get done is H.R. 4, right? And I talk about this every week. H.R. 4 is the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. And the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act has passed the House of Representatives. It is with the United States Senate. So it's a great thing. But basically, in a nutshell, as I tell you every week, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act basically covers and puts back into place what was taken out in the 2013 decision by the Supreme Court, which is pre-clearance. Pre-clearance means that before any voting rights are changed in any U.S. States or territories, that it must go to the Department of Justice for approval. And that approval and those changes must take place at least 180 days prior to an election, which essentially that, as I say every week, was the heart of the Voting Rights Act. That's what prevented voter suppression. That's prevented states, the 443 bills that are in like 40-some states around the United States, where they're making all kind of things that basically make it harder for people to vote. Unlike here in Virginia, where you have the House, the House of Delegates and the Virginia State Senate and our AG that we had and our governor and our lieutenant governor, Virginia had some of the most progressive voting rights in the entire country, bar none. As I was saying yesterday, might have been a little too good because we made it easy for people to vote. Easy for people to vote. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Even our special guest may even want to talk a little bit about voting rights here in Virginia. The other one that I want to talk to you about, folks, which is so important, is the other bill that has passed the House of Representatives, which was the For the People Act. And that really even expanded voting rights even more so. The bill which passed the House and the Senate, expanded access to voting, automatic and same-day voter registration nationwide, 2 weeks of early voting, a ban on all purging of voting voter polls, restored the 1965 Voting Rights Act, which was decimated by the Supreme Court in 2013. That's what I was talking about earlier in the John Lewis ban. That's that pre-clearance piece, by putting that back into place. Also, finance reforms, banning foreign money, election security, independent commissions to prevent gerrymandering. We don't want politicians picking voters, voters pick politicians. And all that is in that bill. Grants to help states to replace outdated and outmoded voting machines, and additional processes for auditing and securing our elections. All of these sort of things. This got passed in the House of Representatives, and it went to the Senate. So, but listen, we were getting busy already here in Virginia. We were like, oh, wait a minute, we don't have to wait for these guys to do this. Here's the importance of state and local elections. The importance of state and local elections is when you put senators, state senators, and you put delegates there that have the same values that you have, then you have the ability, along with having an executive in the governor's mansion and the lieutenant governor, as well as having a good attorney general, AG, you can pass these laws. You can prevent these things from happening even at a state level. Unfortunately, all states aren't as up to date or as you can use the term progressive. I don't think it's pejorative. I think it's a good thing that we make it something where all voters, no matter what they have to say or what they have to do, they have unfettered access to the voting polls. And having unfettered access to the voting polls is an American right. It's not a Democratic right. It's not a Democratic Party right or a Republican Party right. It is an American right, a constitutional right that you have as American citizens. You have to protect that right. So what's the call to action? The call to action is call your representative. Call your federal representative, your congressman or your senator, or either your representative. You can call your local representatives if you want to, your state delegate, your state senator. Call your supervisor, call your mayor, call people and let them know that you're aware of what was passed at a federal level and that you want to have unfettered access to voting rights, because all the things that we want to get done on a local and the state level all start with voting rights. If they can suppress your voting rights, then they can stop you from getting the things that you want to get done for your family and for your businesses. That is fundamental. Voting rights are fundamental to a democracy like air is to your body. If you cannot get voting rights, you do not have a voice. It is important. So folks, call to action, call your congressperson, call your representatives and let them know that you're watching and you want them to support this, or else we're going to vote you out because we know we need these things. Okay, so here we go here, folks. Let's continue to do the voting rights piece. Like I said, it's extremely important. And as we move along, this show goes so fast. I want to talk to you a little bit about who our guest is. And we've got a fantastic guest. I'm telling you, really do. And I'm going to go ahead and bring up her chart and talk a little bit about her. It's just interesting to me that our special guest is Susan Swecker. She is the chair of the Democratic Party of Virginia. She is doing a fantastic job for years in that position, but also she's done a whole lot before she even got to where she is right now. Susan Swecker over the years has served the party in many critical and effective ways. She started in young at age of 22. I don't know how she says age of 22. I didn't think she's much older than that anyway. Okay, anyway, but leaving that alone. She became chairwoman of the Highland County Democratic Committee at age 22. Wow, that's pretty impressive. And her first professional paid campaign job, she did it for Jimmy Carter in the 1980s. Yeah, I'm an 80s kid too. I was in college then, but yeah, I remember the 80s and Jimmy Carter. And from there, she rose through the ranks of several state and national leadership roles to eventually becoming the executive director for the Democratic Party of Virginia. Now she's chair now. That's right at the top. But she actually was the executive director. So she's worked her way through the ranks and understands how the party works from a national standpoint, but also particularly how it works in Virginia. And she's also a member of the Democratic National Committee, which is a federal level, DNC. And she's a former chairwoman of the Southern Caucus. But I'm not done here. We got a little more to tell you about Susan Swecker. She's also she's a current member of the Democratic National Committee and serves on the executive committee and the Rules and Bylaws Committee. If anybody has been involved in working with any organizations or working with any political or non-political organizations, rules and bylaws are important. It's what people can and can't do. Now, it sounds kind of boring, and it'll put you to sleep, but it is the guts of what you can and can't do within an organization. And also, she's widely credited with leading a successful charge to move up the date of the Virginia presidential primary to 2004 cycle, thus placing Virginia in a pivotal position for the cycle and beyond years and years after that. And she's also played a key leadership role with the election of Governor Terry McAuliffe, who was our governor 2 cycles ago, and the Democratic ticket in 2013. And she served as a member of the McAuliffe Transition Team, advising him on hirings and other appointments. Susan is also president of the Dividing Waters Public Affairs Limited Liability Corporation, and she received her law degree from Washington and Lee, right here in Virginia. And then she also has her BA in political science, fellow political scientist. I love that. From Mary Baldwin College. And folks, at this time, I want to just kind of give you an opportunity to meet this fantastic person as I bring her into the stream. It is Susan Swecker, chair of the Democratic Party of Virginia. Susan, thank you so much for coming on our podcast.
Oh gosh, Mark, thank you for having me. And golly, thank you so much for your leadership. I don't know how many of your viewers actually know, but you're a valued member of our steering committee, and give valuable guidance and leadership as part of our steering committee. Actually serves as our board of directors for the Democratic Party of Virginia, and provides valuable guidance, mentorship, and just helps keep us right, and rights the ship, keeps us rowing in the right direction. And I just appreciate your friendship and leadership over all these years. Shoot, I mean, how many years have you been? 4 or 5 now? I forget. I feel like I've known you forever.
The chair around about that time, but she's very crafty. She's flipping the tables now. She's interviewing me. This isn't an interview, folks. It's actually just a conversation. But I'm just joking.
Right, yeah.
It's been 4 or 5 years. I lose count. A lot of great folks.
But I knew we knew each other before you were chair as well, because you, like me, have been in the party a long time. Came up through the party and have been and worked in the trenches, and that's what it's all about.
It's what it's all about. And whenever you talk about that, I mean, I always have to mention Tom Greason and Bob Haley and all the fantastic folks who supported getting the Small Business Caucus started here in Virginia, and folks like Andrew Lockman and the rest of folks at the DNC level. And it has spread out. So happy to see it. We're staying at it. But
and I actually think this Small Business Caucus was actually approved right as I was coming in and elected as party chair.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
Right about the time, about that time. And I was so happy about that, because I think actually what Democrats do for small business and to promote small business, and what we've done in the General Assembly, whether it's Medicaid expansion, raising the minimum wage, so many things, lifting up small business people all across the Commonwealth of Virginia, across this country, have been integral to that. And I was so happy that we were able to add the Small Business Caucus to our party. I think that's incredibly important. And you have been, I mean, you've been such a leader in that, and growing that caucus. It's really important.
Well, we're happy to do that, and I think about folks like the Virginia Dem Biz that's out there been out there for almost 20 years now, if not longer, and the various other affiliated organizations in Shenandoah and the Tidewater area, and then even from a DNC level, we've got caucuses now, and Democratic Party of Georgia has a small business caucus we've been able to establish, as well as Louisiana, which is our interim chair, and other places. So all that has to do with what Democrats basically saying, this is not a venue of our competitors. Most of the small business owners are Democrats. And if we can help to elect more Democrats while they grow their business and help them help their families in the country, that's what we want to do, So I'm off of my
Absolutely.
I'm going to let you talk. Tell her, there's been so much that's happened. We had a pretty tough election cycle last time. And I don't know whether you want to talk about that, or you just want to talk more. I mean, about, just the things that you want to see get done, and what we need to be getting done here in Virginia.
Well, no, I'm not shy about talking about it. I mean, we've never had an easy year, right? And I mean, even when we've won, we've had some challenges. But the one thing I am proud of, the fact that we've always faced our challenges head on. And look, we've only had, there's only been one time that we've won, that a governor has won, when there has been the presidents of an opposite, the same party. And that's when Terry McAuliffe won in 2013. So we knew we were going to face headwinds. in this time. And
Mhm.
we thought we could overcome them, right?
Yeah.
The thing that I find, like, just like you were talking earlier about
Mhm.
voting, voting rights is your passion. It's one of mine
Yes.
too. But the thing that I find just like kind of off-putting, unbelievable is that Glenn Youngkin, benefited from the making voting, us passing laws to making
Mhm.
voting more open, accessible, easier. 55% turnout. Usually you think that a higher voter turnout is good for us, is what we've always thought. And he embraced early voting, unlike Donald Trump, which told people the year before, don't vote early, blah blah blah. He embraced
Mhm.
it. He had like record voting turnout, and now they're still trying to shut it down. It's like you would think he'd go, it worked. There's
It
no
worked.
vote in it. There's nothing wrong with it. And Republicans are still trying to shut it down. But for that brick wall, the Senate Democrats, who keeps, thank God, keep stopping it. It's like, what's wrong with you people? You won because you were able to
Vote easily.
take advantage of it, right?
Exactly. So
Now,
why in the world would you want to change any of that, right?
yeah, why would you want to change it? Now, I will say,
Mhm.
Mark, I think there's a lot of buyer's remorse going on right now.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've heard.
And
I've
we
heard.
saw that with the CNU Wasson poll, which is very, the young people are trying to downplay that, like, polls aren't accurate. Like, look, that is a incredibly legitimate, accurate poll. They were right on the money on the election. They, I mean, look, they
Mhm.
have Biden underwater. I mean, I'm scared about that. They have the president really underwater here in Virginia too. But what that showed is Glenn Youngkin is his disapproval rating underwater. It shows that Virginians are pretty smart and savvy, and it shows that they want underfunded government services to be funded. They want
Mhm.
they want racism, what racism means, to be taught in schools. All I mean, they've like woken up. It's like, wait a minute, we don't, and even though critical race theory and all that are like, no, we want we want that, and it's all because this book banning and all this stuff that they've come out with. It's like all of a
Mhm.
sudden, I just think there's a lot of buyer's remorse going on right now.
Well, let me ask you a question. What do you think was the biggest challenges that we had in that last cycle? We didn't. Well, obviously, we didn't get enough people. I think we had less people that come out, right? And just
Well, actually, the turnout was really high. They
okay.
just had, so like I I actually think that our base actually turned out. Theirs just turned out more, and we didn't see that coming. But I think it was much like 2017 when we were scared, right? We were really scared because we were surprised with the Donald, even though we won Virginia. With Donald Trump winning the presidency, there was that backlash. And I do think there was this they were more energized. There was, we did this whole like tour around Virginia after the election, the DPVA, my staff and I did, and talked. And, that's where, like, let me tell you, nobody knows more about what's going on than talking to the people on the ground. And we were out in Southwest Virginia. And there was this fella that said, you know what this election was about? I'm like, oh, okay, what? And he said, revenge.
Revenge.
It was revenge because people out here were mad that Joe Biden won and that Donald Trump didn't, and they're taking it out on. And I'm like, okay.
Okay.
They were motivated. For whatever reason, they were motivated. And, we saw, we started seeing that, like, that afternoon when the rural counties were voting at larger numbers than before, because like Fairfax, Arlington, Alexandria, our areas, like they were turning out too, right? I mean, our numbers were really good. It was just like there was just that epic turnout. And then look, Afghanistan didn't help. Like without a doubt, no, I have loved Joe Biden all my life. I think he's a great president. I think he's doing a good job. But, we had some headwinds that we were facing as well. So there were a lot of little things going on as well. And then you look at it, we still really lost. It was a really close race. And we lost the House of Delegates by a really close race. And I think we can get it back. I mean, that's my focus is let's look at let's learn and let's move on. And thank goodness we have that brick wall in the Senate, because we are preventing a backsliding on a whole lot of stuff that I know that Virginians do not want to see. They do not want to see us fall back.
The only things that we haven't been able to really our biggest tool is really stopping things that requires the legislator to actually pass with the Senate.
Right.
Anything
we're not getting anything
fiat or by
correct.
To educate folks out there a little bit, is it's like an executive order. Things that he doesn't need the Congress for, they can just do themselves, or resources that get given to the state that the governor has the right to pass out, or for lack of a better term, or distribute. But still, in a lot of that legislation, it has to go through that federal legislation. It still has to go through the House of Delegates and the Senate, right?
Correct. And so, but let's look at it. You have a governor now who portrayed himself as a very affable, vest wearing, basketball playing, moderate. I'm cool, and on the first day issued 11, executive orders that did nothing but created chaos and division. Right. So that's really who he is. Goes on Fox News, goes on right-wing cable all the time, does closed press events, isn't accessible to mainstream media or his constituents or anybody else, anyone else. We know what he's doing. He's running for president of the United States. He's not governing, he's not really you and I, we Virginians, we think there's no higher honor than to being governor of Virginia. Do your job, right? Do your job, do that job. Right? And that's what you were elected to do. Do that. Instead, he's got his eye on 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And I don't think Virginians, they expect you to do your job. That's what you're paid to do. You're elected to do. And instead, he's created all this chaos and division, and is not accessible, is not. And listen, I don't care whether you're a Democrat or Republican governor, past governor. That's what Virginians have come to expect from the person who is the chief executive officer of the Commonwealth of Virginia, and we're not getting from him. He's just not that person. He's not open and accessible to us.
So, from a Virginia standpoint, what do you think are probably some of the best strategies we can continue to do as the Democratic Party of Virginia in order, maybe some of the things I mentioned earlier, just stay focused, stay intentional, and create a strategy to where we're able, one, to win those houses back and the executive offices back that were lost, and continue to do what we can do to get our federal folks elected as well.
That's a really good point. Let's don't forget our wonderful congresswomen that we have to get back in office, and congressmen. Stay focused on that, because that is incredibly important. Elaine Loria, Abigail Spanberger, and Jennifer Wexton up your way. We're so proud of them, and of course, our congressmen too. But those are it's the women who are the most, I think, in the challenging districts, and then pick up where we can. But then also, I think what you just said was really important. Be intentional. We have to be strategic and be intentional. We did not lose the House by very much. We can get that back. We can get that back, but we have to be strategic and we have to be intentional. So here we have Glenn Youngkin and the Republicans who want to do lab schools. Come on. That's charter schools by another name. Under the Constitution of Virginia, we have an obligation to fully fund public education. I'm on this interview in Lynchburg TV station with Wendell Walker from Lynchburg. Of course he wants lab schools for Liberty University, right? You think we need to give Liberty University, which is a hot mess right now under Jerry Falwell, one more thing? We tried lab schools under Bob McDonnell. They were an epic failure. We have not fully funded public education. Let's fully fund public education first. And then we can go look at something else.
I agree that with that public education, and I'm not against different types of schools and trying different things, and there's certain things that work. But let's look at metrics. Let's look at things that actually work. Let's do some some proof of concept things that you can say. Let's say, okay, well that works. Let's put a little more resources there. We're not saying that we don't want to do anything other than what we've been doing. I'm not saying that, but you're right. But don't stop doing what you know that works. Okay.
Well, let's meet our obligation under the Constitution first,
under the Constitution,
and then see where we are. Right? Transportation. We've got so many underfunded things under transportation. And by the way, let's don't let Glenn Youngkin and the Republicans go around and do a happy dance on broadband infrastructure or any of that, because they're getting all this money from Joe Biden and Democrats and the American Rescue Plan. That they're not funding, that they wouldn't have done.
Are they allocating that money, to your knowledge? I don't know how closely you're following all that, because I know you do a lot of things, but I know the party definitely has eyes on it. We're
going to follow it, and every time we're going to make sure that our Democrats are out there claiming it every time we have a broadband infrastructure investment out there. We cannot let them claim victory on that.
That has been a historic problem in messaging with the Democratic Party, not just here in Virginia, but across, nationally, is you have to get out there and tout the things that you've been successful at. Don't spend time talking about the other guy. Spend time talking about you and what you've done, because that's really, I'm not saying that negative politics doesn't work, but what works more so, I believe, or works as well, is when people can see and feel and touch the things that you are responsible for getting accomplished for the people, or the people got it accomplished for themselves.
You were so right about that. And that's a swear, again, be intentional, and be specific, about what your strategy is. Let's don't, we're not going to, and I do think I think we've seen that, right? Louise Lucas, Don Scott. I mean, they have we didn't just go cower in a corner and go, oh my God, we lost. And we're just going to what are we going to do? They have been bold and big, and they have stood up and said, here's who we are. And we are going to stand up for our values, and we are going to speak out. And I am so proud of our leaders, our Senate leaders. And I'm really proud of, our congressional leaders too. And Mark Warner and Tim Kaine. I mean, we are so lucky in Virginia, right? I mean, did we have a little setback? Sure. But good golly, Mark, again, even when we won, like I said, even the years that we won, they haven't been easy, right? But we just back up.
Fight. You gave it to us.
We fight.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm going to change lanes a little bit. And in the spirit and the celebration of African American History Month, some people call it Black History Month, I'm going to ask a few questions here. Or get your insight on a few of these things. One of the things that are challenging, let's just talk political for a minute, is you have 20% of the population in Virginia is African Americans. But more so than that, the percentages of both male and female that vote in that particular constituency is off the charts. I mean, 90-some% for the women and 90-some% for African American men. But we all suffer the lack of voters that don't vote, but just the ones that actually vote. Do you think it's wise when we run statewide offices that we don't really sort of focus and be a little more strategic in trying to, of course, anybody can run for office. We're not saying anybody can't run, but don't people need people and things that reflect who they are so that we get these folks out to vote? and that we win these elections. And I'm not saying that African Americans can't support people who are not African Americans or vice versa, but I'm saying, do we want to have equity? Do we want to have a intentional and strategic plan saying we need to make sure we get all these different communities to the polls? Mm-hmm. But what's your thoughts on that? I don't know if that's a tough question for you.
Yeah, it's it is complicated, and I don't have a perfect answer for it. Mm-hmm. Because I do think our vote turned out this year.
Right.
And when we have a primary, I'm not a genius on this. And as a white girl from a rural area, as an older white woman, trust me, I'm not going to be speaking to that. But, and also, again, as we traveled around the state, and that came up a lot, and I was like, well, and then they were like, you should have fixed that. And I'm like, okay, how would I'm supposed to get in the room and choose between two black women? Like, which black women did you expect me to choose? Like, you would have been mad at me if I had done that, right? That's the purpose of a primary.
Right.
That voters have the right to choose. So it is very, very complicated, but I think I come back to I trust the voters. I think that's the only thing I can say, but I hear you. Mm-hmm. I hear you. But I don't have any particular magic answer, except that everybody has the right to run. Mm-hmm. And then, I think about the 2020 primary, right? Mm-hmm. When, Joe Biden had overwhelming African-American support, and Jim Clyburn, basically, made him the nominee.
Well, let me flip this a little bit, turn it a little ways. I think voting rights goes a long way in solving this problem, because you're going to get people access to the polls without any obstacles in their way. And the other part of it, being the small business caucus, is making sure that and I know our job as Democrats is to elect more Democrats, okay? But our other thing is, I guess, through resolutions and through coordination, and maybe coordination is the wrong word, but through policy statements and through speaking through your values and your platform, can affect things that the Democrats that we elect to office right now. And again, sticking with the spirit of African American History Month, is saying, okay, how can we get more African American small business more opportunities to have products and services that their tax money that they're paying is into, where they're getting a fair share there, and that we're encouraging our officials or elected folks to make sure that they're supporting policies that increase that, so we get those voters paying additional taxes, building in their communities, and everything else that makes Virginia a better state, and a better state makes a better country. So that's a long question, but you kind of get what I'm talking about.
And absolutely, I would love to collaborate with you a little bit more on that, because I always, reach out and try to do my best to reach out to African-American businesses here in the city of Richmond, and particularly when it's, African-American, restaurant week or whatever. But, like I started the Barbara John's, event here in Richmond, and were you with us when we went to Moton Museum and did the,
I remember that.
The retreat, and we, she's my, special, I just love the Barbara John story, and that's special to me. And I know there's so many leaders, that are special, but I would love to collaborate more and think about how to do that, because it's, it's easier said than done, right? I mean, we can talk about it, but that it is, I served on the ABC board with Esther Vassar, who is retired and lives in Florida now, but she was Doug Wilder's head of SWAM, did all that in the small business. And we used to talk a lot about that, and how, a lot of, that was many years ago, but how easier said than done. And she did a lot of the, trips to, working with businesses in Africa and stuff like that. So, it's one of those things where it's a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing, but I would love to figure out how to collaborate, with you as chair of small business to maybe, do some more of that. So I, again, wish I had an answer, but would love to promote that and figure out how to work work a little bit more on that.
It first starts with the intention, followed up by action, working
Yeah.
with electeds, working with small business folks, and getting more small business folks to actually run for office. I mean, all of that. I know it's not just one thing.
We did a lot of that at ABC and tried to really, because Esther was so versed in it, we really made that a priority. And again, that was, back when Tim Kaine was governor. So that's like a lifetime ago too. So, so again, I knew a little bit about it, but we probably ought to like include that a little bit more of as our like focus policy at DPVA as well.
Well, that's a good question, because a lot of people ask me, okay, well, Mark, you're working with the Democrats all of this time, just your average, layperson voter is saying, well, how do you get this done to make my life better? And I always tell them first, listen, everybody comes with three hats on, is what I tell people. You come there, one, with your hat you wear as a Democrat. You come there, two, as your hat you wear as Mark Kennedy, the person, the businessman, the family man. And the third hat I always tell people is you come there with your as an activist, or the things that you have some passion and belief for. And within the Democratic Party, we work to elect Democrats. But what we can do is use those other two hats, as I tell people, to try to get people to bring their passions and their individuality into the party with the things that they want to support, to either run for office or to get other people to encourage them to talk and to collaborate with others who are actually in office, so you can push those policies ahead that you want to see some changes. Like I say in Virginia, we'd like to see better laws that are out there for small business, particularly that look at the percentages of services and products. And I know this is not your arena, Susan, that are purchased by our acquisition folks, to make it more equitable for everyone out there in the small business community, particularly in the spirit of African American History Month, trying to make the laws better in that area. So, I've been beating that drum for a while, but I think we're seeing some movement. We're going to see a little bit of setback, I believe, with this current governor. But hey, we're here for the long game.
Well, you're right. And Mark, I know hours getting late, but I think it's at this point, if we can just keep status quo, it's a victory, right?
Right, exactly. Don't lose any ground.
Right.
I know it is, but Susan, you've been doing a great job for a number of years. And when I get close to the hour, as we are now, I always ask people if they were king or queen for a day, they have a personal pet project, something they really like to see get done, they could wave a wand and get it done. What is it for you?
Well, I mean, the voting rights piece is a really, really important thing to me, because I think that levels the playing field for everybody. If you feel like, listen, I grew up, again, in a small county, more sheep than people, Highland County. And my family, we talked politics around the dinner table. It was really important. I was so proud when I first had that empowered to go vote. And, I felt like, it was important. And I just think that, that empowerment, and to have that ability, no matter what age you are or where you live. And if I just felt like we all had that, that equal playing field, would be, if I could wave a magic wand more than anything else. Pretty simple answer, but it doesn't exist in this world right now. And we can only hope, right?
We're going to get those voting rights. I love that answer. So that's fantastic with me. Hey, the last thing.
I know it's something you feel really strongly about.
Hopefully everybody does. Like I said, it's very important to our democracy. And the last thing I ask you, I try to give you an opportunity to give out your social media or either your handles. How can people, if somebody says, hey, I've been wanting to talk to that DPVA chair, how do I get to her?
Oh, sure. You can chair@vademocrats.org is my email address. I am on Twitter at DPVA chair, @DPVA chair, and love to hear from you.
Well, you're going to hopefully hear from some folks, and a lot of stuff comes out of there. I also want to take the time to thank you and your staff, which is a fantastic staff.
I have a great staff, right?
People. Oh, you got a great staff.
They make me look good.
So, yeah, just that whole crew. I won't even try to name names. I'll just say they all do a very good job. And we've
Well,
got
I want to say, if I can just say one last thing, Mark, I have a really cool, wonderful, fantastic, hardworking steering committee, which you are a part of. And I just can't thank you all very enough either for the work and the backup that you all give as well.
Do you want to give? Thank you very much, by the way. We're happy to work with you. Do you want to give any information about, I know there's a central committee or reorganization stuff coming up. Anything you'd like to say about that?
It's right in the process of it right now. City county chairs have reorged, and the CDs some have reorged and some are in the process of reorging. And we will have officers elections coming up March 9th. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Yeah. Well, that's the sort of stuff we want to hear. And Susan, I appreciate having you on the show as I try to work my technology here. It's coming. Here we go.
It's been a lot of fun.
A little Bob. Good seeing you. See you next time on the Virginia Democratic Small Business Caucus Show live. Thank you, Susan Swecker.
Thanks a lot.
See you later.
Bye.